Hello, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. I am Brandon Mileski from KFan Radio. Pat Micheletti, former Golden Gopher, great with me as well. And Pat, we're excited to welcome two new sponsors to the Beyond the Pod podcast, which you can listen to on the iHeartRadio app and wherever you get your podcasts. And also, you can watch us on the KFan YouTube channel. Pat, we're pleased to welcome Soda Stick and SodaStick.com and Culturama Hockey to sponsoring this great podcast that you and I love so much.
Yeah, it's great to have them on board, and look forward to partnering with them as we go along.
And we'll give some more information to the listeners shortly about those two great sponsors. But we're pleased now to welcome the head coach of the Golden Gopher men's hockey team, Bob Motzko. Bob, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And before we look forward, I kind of want to look back because I don't think I've really heard from you since the pandemic started. You guys were in the middle of a playoff round. You had just defeated Notre Dame in a best of three. You're about to play Penn State, and all of a sudden, season is over. So if you can remember back to that 5 months ago, how did you feel about the way the team was playing at that moment, and how weird was it to just have the season end right in the middle of the playoff?
My goodness, when you talk about that, doesn't that seem like 5 years ago?
Yes.
You're trying to bring me back there, and that's just a distant memory right now because of everything we went through. But real quick on that, it was big for us to obviously knock off Notre Dame the first round. We were playing our best hockey. That first round, every coach will tell you that's the gut wrencher every year. If you get through that, now your team is moving and you've got a chance. And that's what we really felt. We felt we were playing our best hockey. We were on top of things. We were getting ready to go to Penn State. We had just been there a couple of weeks prior to that would have been that playoff series, and we had leads in both third periods. Penn State was a heck of a team, and we felt that gap was closed, that we were ready for that challenge, and poof, it all ended. But it ended for everybody in every sport and in our society, and the fact that we were able to play a full season, though we did get through our full season. And I can't even imagine spring sports that, didn't even get to lift a bat or to participate at all. And that's cut short. And I think our kids were grateful the fact that we did get through a season, and though it cut short, they accepted it. And we got a lot of returning players. We only lost 3 players off last year's team. And I know now, last year ended. All they want now is a start date, and that's all we're fighting for. Just give us a start date.
Hey, Bob, you and I have had many conversations about Gopher hockey and what it's like to play there and how you have to carry yourself. And we talked about swagger and getting that swagger back. And, you could just tell, through your first 2 years, really starting, about a quarter of the way through this season, where, you could start to see the guys, I know what it's like to play here. I know the expectation. I know how to carry myself. And you could just see this team, starting to get to where, you want it to be. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. It is, Pat. We know you don't take this job and not have a full understanding of the expectations that come with the program. But also when you take it over, you just don't snap your fingers and you're there like right now. It is a process, and we were going through. That's the word we throw around now. Process. We were going through it, and I really felt the first year we started to get it as well. But I've never had a program, though. We lost 12 players.
Right.
That's half your team. And so, you're a new coach in a program. You just start playing well, and poof, you're starting completely over. And last year, 18 freshmen and sophomores, we kind of got there again.
Yep.
And I think for a new coach, I'd hate to be doing that in my 7th and 8th year. That's part of athletics. But when you're in year 1 and 2, you get a little bit of a grace period. But to answer it, you're right. I think there was a comfort level with our players. There was a comfort level with the staff. We felt together. We really felt we were moving in that direction that we all want to be, and we're coming back. Like that's now we got to deal with what we all are dealing with, the pandemic. I mean, like this, we're doing a podcast. Have you ever done this before? Where do you even know how to do this before, Brandon?
We just started this about a month ago. Yeah, just a couple weeks before the Wild got back into action. It's and this is probably going to be the future too.
And you know what? I was talking to someone about that the other day. That things like this are awful easy.
Yeah.
And anyway, we're excited, and we're hoping that we get that. And I believe we are going to have a start date this year. And I know I'll say kids, our kids, that's what, our young men, they're just looking at us for, and they know we don't have the answer today, but we all know it's coming, and we're going to find a path forward because, we got work to do yet in this program, and we know it. We're not hiding from it.
Well, I know you don't have the answer, but what's kind of your hunch as to what the 2020, 2021 season is going to look like in terms of start date, or what kind of changes are going to be made? Or what are you kind of expecting at this moment?
All right, this is Bob Motzko today. Nothing that anybody's telling me because nobody is. In reading the tea leaves, I think Thanksgiving is probably a pretty good day. Pretty good time frame. The campuses are going to be emptying out. We're going to be back at isolation. It's self-isolation because you are alone on a campus when everybody leaves. There's a parking spot everywhere for all of us. And I think that's going to give time for the medical people. I said this last week in an interview. I mean, like last night, did you watch the Twins last night?
Yes.
That poor guy, you felt awful for him. I mean, he couldn't have pitched any better. Well, then I had to stay until the 13th inning to watch the end of it. And thank goodness we pulled the win out. And then you stayed up all night and watched hockey until the last game was over. And it's way past my bedtime. But we're watching sports again. And they've got great medical people. I know that 2 of the sports are in bubbles. But, hey, if they found a path forward to play sports, we're going to learn from that. I mean, and all indications right now, I know baseball's had some hiccups. It's been successful. We've got smart medical people. They've got smart medical people. Those worlds got to find each other. And that's why I'm confident we're going to have a season. I'm confident there's going to be basketball. Is it going to look different? Yes. But, our big wish list is to move the Frozen Four. If we can get that thing pushed, we're going to be a true winter sport now. That's the craziness. Is hockey is considered a winter sport. We all know in the business, we are not a winter sport. We are a spring, winter, fall, winter, spring sport.
Right.
But now this year, we're going to be a true winter sport, which will play into the spring. That's our wish.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure just from reading and talking to people, I'm sure you guys have gone through every imaginable scenario, depending upon what date starts. Has there ever been any thought, and this is crazy on my part, to almost, scrapping the leagues this year and playing an independent schedule where it could fit in and you can get the amount of games and go from there?
Yeah, Pat, as much sense as that makes, where, like you and I'll play medical here, is much easier for us to get on a bus and drive into Mankato and drive right out the same day. Is that safer than getting on an airplane or getting on a bus and traveling across, state lines, or getting an airplane and going across a bunch of state lines? I don't think that's going to happen. It really sounds like people are going to stay inside their leagues right now.
Yeah.
That could change. But I know, because leagues have more control over themselves and their personnel and their universities. And I think that's really probably what's going to happen, is you're going to stay inside your leagues right now. We always don't do what makes the most sense to us, but that's why we're not in leadership of that. We're riding the bus.
Well, and I'm assuming as well, Bob, that you don't know what attendance is going to be like, whether you're going to be allowed to have fans or if it's going to be a limited amount of fans. So the way sports are making money right now is television. So that would make sense for the Big Ten network to have Big Ten games, have those teams playing each other.
We sure hope that that's what's going to come out of it. And I know we've had some great conversations recently with the Big Ten some ideas, and nothing we can share right now, but real positive steps. But the Big Ten Network would play a big part in our getting back at it, and all those worlds got to come together, and I believe that they're going to. Let's face it, everybody had to put their concentration into football, and they say fall sports, football.
That's the engine,
and that is now, in our world, in the Big Ten world, in a lot of leagues, it's over right now, and they're going to concentrate on the spring for fall sports. They can now start concentrating on winter sports. And let's face it, that's basketball. And for us in Minnesota, it's hockey. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to learn from each other, learn the positive. Hey, what if some of these conferences do play sports in the fall, like they've announced? If they do, we're all going to learn from that. There's going to, collecting data. Our people that are awful smart are going to find out if we can make this thing work.
Hey, Bob, I've seen around the country, Harvard, for example, right? The Ivy League, they're not going to get on the ice until January 1st. Well, lo and behold, 3 guys on their team, underclassmen, signed contracts. Is that a concern for you or some of the other coaches maybe around the Big Ten?
Great question, Pat. And this is my thought now. When the Ivy Leagues did that, they did it early. Mm-hmm. I think if the Ivy Leagues would have been doing that now, there might have been a difference with some of those players, because we do now know more than we did 2 months ago or a month and a half ago when that decision was made. I mean, it's realistic. January 1 might be the start date for winter sports. That's a realistic. But they've also, major juniors said December 1. USHL came out yesterday, November 4. The American League now is December. NHL will not start till December. I mean, the only place that's playing hockey, to what I know, is Europe.
Europe, yeah.
Really, no. So if anybody's telling any of our players, we're going to put you somewhere else, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But you go back a month and a half ago, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
So now there is closure to those kinds of conversations. If you're a hockey player and you want to play, you're going to have to sit tight anywhere you want to go. If you're under 20, the junior leagues are going to start later. Now the pay for play, like the elite league, our way is all set to go. Or if high school gets slowed down or backed up, they're going to continue to play like the elite league. There will be hockey for our younger guys. They're going to find a way, but we will too. It's just going to be delayed.
And just on that point for a second, excuse me, Brandon.
No worries.
You'd hate to see a guy leave when he's not ready. I know, when you think a player's ready, have at it. But man, I'd hate to see circumstances like this make a person leave and he's not ready, and it's not, they talk, oh, what's he gonna do development wise? There's no hockey for 2 months. I mean, I'd hate to see, and I hope those guys succeed, the ones that left. But boy, it's a risk, a short-term decision in my opinion.
Well, part of it too, and we'll just go quick on it, is our players also had voices in their heads a month and a half ago. Yeah. You had major junior coaches calling your players going, we're going to play. Yeah. Well, now we know they're not going to play. Right. You had advisors saying, well, we can get you here if they're not going to play. Right now, we know nothing is starting until November in North America. And I think that puts everything at ease right now, that frustration, no more. We now know a plan. That's why I'm going to just give our guys a start date. Now it gives us the target to move to. And I know we're living in this world of because we're not going to have a start date today. No one's going to announce it. No one's going to announce it tomorrow or by Friday or next Tuesday. But sometime in the very near future, give us that start date. And then you watch. Now our enthusiasm will pick back up. You guys will have something to talk about. And look what we're watching. We're watching sports right now. It's there. And we'll find college sports soon.
We're talking with Bob Motzko. He's the head coach of the Minnesota Gophers men's hockey team. This is Beyond the Pod with Brandon Mileski and Pat Micheletti. Let's actually talk about your team for this season, whenever the season does start. Year 3 under the organization, as you mentioned, basically most of the team returning, including your top 6 leading scorers. So what are you expecting? What kind of jump are you expecting from your team this year?
Well, we'll start like after year 1, Robson did a great job in goal for us in year 1. And all of a sudden, and then last year we went into the start with 3 brand new goalies, or 3 new goalies to our program. When all the dust settled, we had pretty good goaltending. From Christmas on last year, we had superior goaltending. They're all back right now. So, with LaFontaine, Mo, and closer, there's great confidence. And I'll start with that position where we're going to start now. The old Lou Holtz. I don't mind starting a season with unknowns. I just don't want to end a season with unknowns. And we have a commodity right there in our goaltending that we're in good hands. Our forwards offensively, I think, Sammy Walker, McLaughlin, Ranta, Reedy, McManus. We've got older guys now with a little swagger offensively. And then the emergence like Ben Myers last year, he's going to be a terrific player and really elevate his game to a higher level. So goaltending, I really like how it played out for us. Forwards, we're in a great spot. We're going to be young on Dino. And, gone are a couple defensemen that played an enormous amount of minutes in Tyler Nanny and Ryan Zulsdorf. And all of a sudden, but great talented decor. We are going to be heavy with freshmen and sophomore on our decor, but we love them. They're ball players.
Yeah.
And, we're going to have some growing pains on that back end early in the year, but I think that's one of the things as we get to the second half of our year, when all that comes together, we got a chance to be a pretty good hockey team.
Yeah, I don't want to single any guys out, but I'm going to. And Johnson and Lacombe, their development throughout the year, their confidence, especially with the puck. I was thinking back and it's been a while since Minnesota's had, I think back to Nate Schmidt and Mikey Riley, 2 guys that could really, really skate, really handle the puck, headsy players. And, those 2 guys are something else with the puck. They skate well. It's a good starting point right there.
Well, and Gopher hockey, traditionally, their decors have been outstanding. I always go back to Leopold, Martin, and Ballard on the same decor. That doesn't happen too often, but what happens but our guys right now with Johnson, Lacombe, and Faber coming in, and Mikey Kester, we've got talent back there. Little young, and Robbie Stucker's got a great stick and been a very good power play player for us. And our points from a defensive core have been not traditionally what you see out of a decor. We had some big, heavy guys that did a real good job for us. But for our program to take that next step, we need more production out of our decor. And we've got the guys that can do that.
Well, talk about that income.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about that incoming class, Bob. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all from Minnesota. So is that intentional or is that coincidental?
Well, that's both. We're going to, if Minnesota, the University of Minnesota and our state they're mirrored together through all of time and always will be. There's always going to be a Pat Micheletti coming through, and God, you hope another Hibbing guy comes through. And we're going to do our darndest to always have the best Minnesota kids that we can get. But also, what's different now than when Pat Micheletti? We're going to have another Minnesota team, Division I. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's count them up now.
Yeah, that's it.
Count them up. and they're going to offer scholarships. So if you're a Minnesota hockey player, there's never been a better time to play Division I hockey and not have to leave your state than there is right now. We still know who we are and the expectations here, but if we have to branch out to I always say, who wants to be on Thomas Vanek's line? There were a whole lot of guys raising their hand that would love, Minnesota players, and Matt Kowalski will lead that charge and say, I want to be on his line.
Right.
It makes Minnesota high school players better if we can add those players from outside. They're going to come in and help our program. If they happen to be in the state that year, Amen. And the majority of our roster is always going to be Minnesota kids. We will branch out. This is just here. It's a small recruiting class. I think 5 guys right now, but you're right. All out of the state of Minnesota, and we think it's an outstanding group.
Got forwards coming in also in this class, or
I think it's done, but Mason Nevers will be coming in, and that's there you're getting the one. I mean, it's not a hidden secret. People know it, but Mason, right. We only lost the one forward off last year, and we had debated all summer if we were going to add 2 forwards or not, but and there still may be another forward we add in there.
Bob, I know this has probably been on the back burner with everything that's been going on over the last 5 months, but this is the 100th season of University of Minnesota men's hockey coming up here. So maybe you guys have kind of lost focus with that, but what's kind of the plans for celebrating a program that's had quite the tradition?
Our university has not lost any of its, but I will say this COVID, it's devastated so many areas, but it really is going to take some of the things we had planned. It's going to hurt this year. That there's no question. We really had some tremendous things lined up to celebrate 100 years. We're still going to get at them. I know you're following social media, the countdown, the 100 cities in 100 days that was leading up to. How crazy is this? October 3rd is our start date. Nobody's canceled it yet. I think it's we know we're not playing October 3rd. But we're supposed to play Bemidji, and I don't know if Ernie still has his hotels planned here in the Twin Cities. But I think someone better pick up a phone one of these days and actually officially cancel that game. But that was going to be the kickoff to it, and we're all following that. We're going to have some throwback uniforms, and I got a little peek at that the other day. They're going to be fantastic, and all year long, celebrating with the fans and the people of Minnesota and our alumni, and bringing all that together. And we're going to find, all the things we had planned, we're still going to see how they can come together with the COVID. And as we get through that, and hopefully, hey, let's hope second half, when we get to the new year, that we're in a better spot so we can really do a great justice in celebrating that. And some of our celebrations, if we have to put them off to next season, we're going to, with our alumni, we'll celebrate 100 years on 101st year, but we're going to get there one way or another.
All right, you never take a day off, and I'll make this quick. We appreciate your time as always. Assess the Big Ten this year, and any expectations. I know some teams, lost a few guys, and Michigan, for example, is brought in a pretty good class. What are your initial thoughts on the upcoming season?
2 years now being in the league, and I know it's an ugly word because nobody wants to hear parity. Nobody wants to, we all long for the days when you just run in first place from start to finish. But our league, it's great hockey, and even though a team might lose a lot of players like we did the year before,
right?
We're coming back, and there we were playing for a championship right at the end. But how about that? The end of last year, Michigan State was playing at Penn State in overtime. If Michigan State would have scored the overtime goal, we would have had a 5-way tie for first place.
Unbelievable.
In the 7-team league. And Penn State scored the goal. Michigan State finished in 6th place. One goal,
yeah.
Get a 5-way tie for first.
Crazy. Michigan
State goes to 6th place. And so you look at the standings, and if you're a Michigan State fan and you're going, geez, we finished in 6th place. That's just crazy. One goal.
Right.
We have a 5-way tie for first. So that's why I'm answering it. I know we have a lot of returning players. We're going to take a step forward, but I don't know how far you can really step, because you just said it. Michigan's got a terrific recruiting class coming in. Penn State lost an enormous amount. So people are going to say, well, Penn State, they're going to be back. They're going to take a step back. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
There's 2 good hockey programs right now. We're just going to kick the snot out of each other, and you just hope to stay healthy and be playing your best hockey and get in that darn NCAA tournament. And that's what our focus is going to be on.
Bob, we really appreciate your time as always. Good to chat with you after a long time, and good luck this season whenever it starts.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for having us on.
All right,
Yep.
Bob Motzko, he's the head coach of the Gopher men's hockey team. And before we move on to talking some Minnesota Wild, Pat, why don't you tell us about one of our new sponsors, Futurama Hockey,
I will.
or Culturama Hockey, excuse me.
Culturama Hockey.
Yeah, I don't want to screw that up.
Are you having trouble getting brand recognition, media exposure, or promotion? Looking to find specialized tournament or even management services? At Culturama, they cultivate, collaborate, and connect you to new business strategies to maximize your organization's publicity through strategic brand development, multimedia creation, social media design, sponsorship promotion, targeted marketing plans, or even management services. With over 20 years of experience, Culturama creative teams will guide you through a comprehensive plan to reach your brand goals. Follow, like, and subscribe to Culturama today to learn how to obtain that PR plan.
All right, Pat, let's move on to Minnesota Wild hockey. I alluded to this on Twitter within the last week, but Pat, you and I have talked about basically for the existence of this franchise's history, how they need a number one center. And
Yep.
I was kind of thinking about it, and we focus on the number one center, but this team actually needs a number one and a number two center because Eric Stahl only has 1 year left on his contract. He's 36 years old. You and I both like Joel Eriksson Ek, but not confident he can play, at least have the creativity or the offensive flair or the playmaking to be one of your top two centers.
Yep.
Nico Sturm, I think we both would like as a fourth line center, but and you look at the prospects in the organization, and other than the Russian kid, and I'm not talking about Kirill Kaprizov, I'm talking about the Kovanov kid, who I haven't really seen play, so he's kind of an unknown. There's really nothing there in the pipeline for what you do for top two centers. So, and you're not necessarily going to do it all this year, Pat, especially because you and I both know it's going to be very challenging to get a number one center this year. They don't exist in free agency, and really the number two centers don't really exist in free agency. You're not going to be able to really trade for one, I don't believe. You kind of have to get one in the draft. So how do you go about filling both the number one and number two center spot, I guess, within the next 2-3 years?
Well, listen, I think you can, if you're creative enough, you can get one. I don't know about a prime time number one center. You could, if you offer the right package, if you're willing to give up some of your assets to do that. Now, when I look at this team, and I'm thinking, well, who's really untouchable? Well, I look at Jared Spurgeon. I would never trade him. I wouldn't necessarily trade Jonas Brodin. I just think he is phenomenal and someone who's going to play another 10-15 years with the way he plays. Ryan Suter, he's been a bull back there. And he's got a no move contract and a difficult contract also. So that'd be a difficult one. So who's available, right? You got to look at your young guys. You got to look at Cunnin. You got to look at Greenway. You got to look at Eck. You and I have both talked about Eck being here as a third line center, for the next 10 years. Well, okay. We don't think he's got any upside offensively, right? And I say Eck, and I'm going to explain why. When why I would throw Eck into that possible trade category is I was watching the St. Louis Blues the other night, okay? And I'm looking at their team, and I'm thinking, well, where's their superstar? Okay, Tarasenko's out of the lineup. He's probably their best offensive guy. Okay, and I look at their decor and how they won it last year, right? And they were all big, they're all strong, all probably over 6'2", 6'3". They miss Bouwmeester now, by the way, but and my point is, their defensemen matched up with their forwards, meaning they played a heavy game. They got pucks out. They played four lines. They didn't beat up teams, but they pounded teams, and they were a tough team to beat. And so, their forwards kind of matched their D. Now, when I look at Minnesota, right? Minnesota's got mobile D. They don't have big D. They got guys that can get up the ice. Dumba, Spurgeon, Brodeen, and even Suter to a certain extent, but he plays a little bit different game.
Yep.
And then I looking at the forwards, I'm like, okay, they got guys that, have some, giddy up to them. But when they get up there, they don't have that skilled guy that can then make that play,
Yep.
So my point is, do the forwards match up with the D? And to me, I don't know if they do. Where the Blues, you look big, strong, and their forwards are big and strong or whatever, and they play a pretty simple game, and they get great goaltending and they win. So there are different ways to win. And so I think Minnesota's got to either get bigger on D and use our forwards that we have and play a Blues type of game, or, be like the Washington Capitals or the Vegas Golden Knights, who get up the ice, who have skilled forwards, who can score and play that style of game. So those are questions that I think they've got to answer.
Pat, I don't throw around compliments very often to you, as you well know.
No,
that's one of the best points, one of the best hockey takes you've ever had, and something that I didn't even really consider. And you are 100% correct. When you have guys like Jared Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin and even Matt Dumba, even Suter to a certain extent, and even Hunt on your third pairing, they can get up. They can get up and down the ice. And then at the forward position, you have a lot of big, lumbering power forwards, and I think those are the kind of guys Boudreau wanted, frankly. And we'll see now that Evason's going to have his first full-time year, and you have a new GM, whether they transition away from those kind of guys. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to have Greenways and X and Folinos and even Cunnin to a certain extent. It makes more sense to have guys like Fiala and Kaprizov. And I just think about, Pat. Can you imagine Jared Spurgeon with the Blackhawks back in the day with Kane and Taves, and the Sidney Crosbys and the Malkins and the Nathan McKinnons? I can only imagine what would happen to the offensive part of their game with guys like Jared Spurgeon.
Yeah, put him with the Vegas forwards right now. I mean, William Karlsson, Marchessault, Tuck. Alex has been great for him. Had a goal disallowed last night. Would have had two, but he ends up getting the game winner. But yeah, I agree with you, and so we'll see what direction that Bill Guerin's going to go. I mean, he's got to also address the goaltending situation. What are they going to do there? Listen, they probably could have been in a playoff position had they gotten better goaltending early. Hindsight, yes, but they've got to address that situation and not put a Band-Aid on it, because I look at look at Vegas, right? Again, I'll use Vegas, but Robin Leonard and Marc-Andre Fleury, they're they're in the playoffs and they're switching games. And when you have two number ones like that, man, we had to search who's number one here.
Mm-hmm.
If three guys, and none of them really is a number one per se, at what we're looking at right now. And so I think I think that's a top priority for them.
Go to sodastick.com to get your original Minnesota sports inspired goods. If you haven't seen the stuff yet, you have to check it out. One of my favorite designs is the shirt I'm currently wearing, the local hockey man shirt. All of their apparel is screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts and hoodies. You will absolutely love it. And we are going to hook you up with free shipping on your next order. So just use the code KFAN for free shipping. That is sodastick.com, SOTASTICK.com. Original Minnesota sports inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for free shipping. I do just want to get back to that center possession quick, Pat, because to get a number one center, let's face it, you basically, for the most part, you got to get it through the draft. It's very hard to get it through any other avenue.
Right.
The Wild pick number 9. And I think most people out there say we have to get a center with the number 9 pick. And you know me, I'm a best player available. That being said, this team desperately does need a center. But to me, you don't force center at number 9. You don't just pick the top center available because it's the top center. But what I would say, Pat, is if you identify a center in this draft that you like, go up and get it.
Yes.
You might not be able to get Quentin Byfield at number 2. That might be too expensive. But if you want to get a Marco Rossi who might go anywhere from 5 to 7 to 8, and you need to jump up a couple spots, then give up your 9 pick, and you might have to give up something else. You might have to give up a 3rd round pick, or might have to give up a prospect of some sort. That, to me, that's how you address it. Go find your guy, as opposed to once you're at number 9, oh, we're just going to take the best center available.
I agree 100%. And listen. And this is not saying that the current guys that they have are bad. They're pros. They're good players, right? But for example, let's take Jordan Greenway. He's had a tough time here, or hasn't matured to that level yet, where all of his skill and size and assets and all of that, have come to the fore. Some team is going to need a guy like Jordan Greenway. Some team would want Jordan Greenway. Same goes for a Luke Cunnin. Same goes for Eriksson Ek. Some team who thinks that they are on the verge of getting to the cup, but they're lacking a position. You know what? Joel Eriksson Ek just might fit that role for a team. And so listen, you just got to work hard and find the right team and find the right fit. And if there is a guy, if you really want Byfield at 2, well, then you know what? Then you get creative and try to work a deal, because that kid will play in the National Hockey League next year. There's no question in my mind. And so if that's what you need to do to improve your team long term, and even in the short term, then you do it.
And it's interesting you bring up Eriksson Ek, Pat, because I think most Wild fans would say, man, I really like the way he played. He was kind of a shutdown center in the playoffs. But if you think about it, I haven't seen enough of Nico Sturm play, but just the physical traits, he seems like he's capable of playing the same role as Joel Eriksson Ek. And if
upside too in the offensive category.
Yeah. And if there's ever a time to sell Joel Eriksson Ek, this might be the time to do it. His value might be the highest right now. I don't know if his value might stay the same moving forward. I don't know if his value is going to go up from this point.
Yeah, he's been around long enough to how do I say this correctly? To be at a point where he should be more offensively, if he has that in his game.
Yeah.
What I've seen, he's honest. He's an agitator. He's great defensively and all of that. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't know if there's any upside there offensively for him. And this team is in need of a player of that category. And when you have Nico Sturm, who fared well, small sample, but skates well, big, strong, pretty much, could be the same type of player. I don't know if you need 2 of them.
All right, final topic, Pat. Minnesota hockey fans, we love Minnesota connections. And there are 3 Minnesota connections available in free agency this year. I want to know whether you have lots of interest, some interest, or absolutely zero interest. We'll begin with Erik Haula, who we lost to the Vegas Golden Knights in the expansion draft. He's due to be a free agent this year, and we are in need of a center. Your thoughts?
Intriguing. He did score 29 with Vegas 2 years ago. Had the bad knee injury. I don't know if you're looking at a number 1 center. You're looking at Erik Haula.
No.
Or even maybe a number 2.
Borderline number 2.
I think Erik is really good when he plays against third line players, because his speed and he has enough skill to handle that role and score a bunch of goals there. But listen, I don't think he's a number 1 or a number 2, and so I would probably not go after him if I'm looking to fill those two roles.
I agree with you. I like him as a borderline number 3 center, top 2 center, especially because there's not a lot of centers available in free agency. So I almost feel like he's going to get overpaid, which I don't want to overpay for him and slot him into a second line center spot. That being said, Pat, we've been watching Mikko Koivu and Eric Stahl for the last couple of years. It'd be nice to have some speed at that position.
It really would. Yeah. I mean, because does that open up the middle or what? I mean, Look at Vancouver. When that top line gets going, you see the D backing up, and Pedersen coming at you with his speed. So and let's not forget one thing on Holla when he and a lot of guys do this. So it might not be fair to Eric, but he came in here and he was a shutdown defensive forward for this team, right? When he
Yep.
against Chicago, and then that turned into him scoring a couple beautiful goals.
Yeah.
Showed up and all that, but he was out there against their top guys quite a bit, and was effective that way. So I think Eric, if used properly, yeah, but not as number one or two.
All right, Minnesota connection, free agent number 2. Mikhail Gramlin, of course, drafted by the Minnesota Wild, traded to the Nashville Predators for Kevin Fiala. Played wing and center, but kind of started to flourish as a wing. So any desire to bring back Mikhail Gramlin, and would you move him to center or keep him at wing if you did?
Well, no, I wouldn't go after Granlund, and I'll tell you why. I think he's a great playmaker, right? But he's not a fast guy. He's not. He doesn't possess that breakaway speed, and he has struggled in Nashville. At games I watched, hard to notice at times. But he is very skilled, and so that part you like. But he'd been there, done that with this team, and I think there are other players out there that intrigue me a heck of a lot more.
Here's what I'd say about Granlund, Pat. If the Wild can somehow move a Zach Parise off the roster, right now they really don't have any openings to get a free agent wing. But let's say they can move a Parise off the roster, or somehow magically get Zuccarello off the roster, and you have an opening for a wing.
Yep.
I do think you can get him at an absolute bargain. So to me, it becomes, what price can you get a guy at? And then do they now have value compared to what price they are? He's a free agent. He's not getting the 5-year deal anymore. He's not getting 5-6 million a year. To me, you can get him for a bridge deal. You might get him for 1 year, even 2 years for heck, $3 million. And at that price, and if you are able to move one of those wings, such as a Zach Parise, I might have a little bit of interest in bringing Mikhail Granlund back at that price, and see how he can work with a Fiala or a Kaprizov, and you're not committed to him for a long time, because I don't think he's as bad as the last 2 years we've seen in Nashville.
All right, are you committed to him being in your top 6?
Well, in that case, yes.
Okay, yeah.
I'd rather have him there than a Cunnin or a Greenway or Foligno
Yeah, I mean, because he does add power play. If you can, again, he's one of those guys where he handles the puck, sees the ice so well, doesn't shoot it great, but talk about a power play that needs to get better. Him and Fiala working together, yeah, it would look potentially pretty good, and Kaprizov too. But I would search before I went to him.
Sure.
That's how I'll leave it.
All right. And the final, number 3, free agent with a Minnesota connection. I have no desire if he wants to play hockey ever again, Pat, but I'll bring his name up just in case. Dustin Byfuglien is technically a free agent. Your thoughts?
Well, you know what you're going to get out of him. There's going to be nights where you say, why did we sign him if we did sign him? And you're going to be nights where you say, no one's coming near our goaltender. Everyone on the bench is going to feel a lot, going to have a lot more confidence in their game because of him. He's a unique player. And when he is on, he's really, really, really good. And with him, I think it's about, do I want to commit to playing? And you also, as a management and coaches and your teammates, have to know there are just some nights that he's not going to play very well, or not have the interest that you would like a player to have. When he is interested, when he's engaged, he is, he can control a game. And if he's healthy, you're darn right. I would take him in a millisecond, and that gives you options to move one of your top 4D.
That's what I was going to bring up,
and include him in a deal. I think I would explore it. I certainly would.
Yep.
And he's a Minnesota kid. He lives here in the off season. It might be a fit.
Well, that was going to be my point that you just brought up there, Pat. That one, if he wants to play, and that's a big if at this point. But
Right.
if he has a desire to play, to me, you can move Matt Dumba and try to bring in your number 1 or number 2 center as part of the deal with Matt Dumba. You can slide in Bufflin, who's going to be able to play power play for you. He's going to bring an offensive flair, and obviously a heavy force on the blue line. And he also, it's going to be, let's face it, with what happened with him, it's going to be a 1-year deal.
Yep.
It's not going to be a lot of money. So to me, the reward is worth the risk that you're putting, and he kind of gives you a little bit of a bridge for a year or two before maybe Kalen Addison is ready.
Great point. Absolutely terrific point. Yes. And I think he knows enough guys on the team too that if you needed Zach Parise to go to Buff and say, hey man, love to have you on our team. Ryan Suter, he knows all those guys. He's played against or with all these guys. And so, I hadn't thought of his name until you brought it up, but boy, he would look good in this uniform.
Well, let's make sure Parise is still in a Wild uniform as well. But
yeah,
Pat,
sure.
That's it for this episode of Beyond the Pod. It's been brought to you by our new sponsor, SodaStick, sodastick.com. Use the code KFN for free shipping, and also Culturama Hockey. Pat, we will talk to you next week on Beyond the Pod.
Sounds great. Thanks, Brandon.
All right. Thanks, Pat.